Right, now it's recording. This is Alex Hilton with Party Chair Hazel Blears.
Hello Alex, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Yourself?
Delighted to have the opportunity to talk to you using this fantastic whizzy bit of kit you've got here. It just shows you that, you know, Labourhome is on the ball and leading the way, can I say, in new politics.
Thank you very much. Right, so why are you here with us today?
Well, what I wanted to talk about, Alex, was a little bit about current political situation, where we are, where I think the Tories are, and what the fight is that's facing us over the next 6 months. And also why, because I am an optimist, I think the period ahead of us is going to be one of the best opportunities we've got, really to have a showcase for the party and a real chance to try and engage the public in politics as well, which has been sadly lacking in the last few years, I think. So if we kick off really with where I think we are, well, where I think we've come from as well. I think if we just think back to kind of September time, we were in a pretty difficult place, I think. And leading up to conference, everybody thought that we'd have a bloodbath, there'd be internecine warfare, and we'd spend all the time fighting each other. And as it was, I think the general view of conference in Manchester was it was a bit of a triumph, partly because it was Manchester, my home place, so that was good, but also because the party genuinely, I think, was really wanting us to be together, to be united, talk about some of the serious big politics that faces us. And my sense was that at our conference we really exceeded people's expectations, which were pretty low to start off with. And in a way, the Tories, they just didn't come up to the mark at their conference. People thought that they would be, really leading the field. They'd have all these technological innovations. They were going to have Dragon's Den, all of that. And I think it fell a bit flat for them. And I think the charge that we've been making now for quite a few months, that Cameron was all about style, hasn't got any real policies, is actually sitting on top of a party that's full of tension and pulling itself apart, is actually beginning to stick. So after, when we came out of conference, I think the polls were certainly better for us. And polls at the moment are quite volatile because politics is interesting, more interesting than it's been for quite some time. But I think if people have been thinking where we might be now, I think they would think that we're in a much better position than we might have anticipated. The polls are more or less level. The one exception to that, I think, is around the health service, which I do think is a very serious issue for us over the next few months. But broadly speaking, Cameron has not got the kind of lift-off that he needs to be in real contention at the next general election. I was thinking about where we were in the early 90s, and we were consistently 20, 25 points ahead of the Tories, and then we didn't win at the election. So he's just not got that kind of lift-off from where he is. But what it says to me is that we need to now be absolutely ruthlessly focused on taking them apart on policy. Whether it's European policy, their constitution, the tax commission proposals that they issued last week, which would benefit, I think, the top 10% of the population, talking about abolishing inheritance tax, which affects 6% of people, abolishing the 10p rate of tax, which obviously helps a lot of lower paid people, and a sense that they're going to tax less and spend more. It just simply does not add up. And I think the Tories have made a really big strategic mistake last week, and the responsibility of all of us in the party now is to really take that apart at every opportunity. And again, I think that will get some real traction with people, that basically, they might say certain things about wanting to cut taxes, but in reality, that means cutting the health service, cutting education, cutting spending on the police. And that's a very powerful mix for us to start pushing on now. So I think he's given us a bit of more ground for us to take forward. And I genuinely think, when you put them under pressure, they have not got the depth and the maturity and the experience to tackle difficult issues. So I'm quite looking forward to the next few months, which is going to be more and intense kind of Tory attack, but also a very positive campaign from us, that we're looking at the big issues. We're going to be having these policy reviews, looking at some of the massive changes that are taking place in Britain and across the world, in security, in energy, in the world of work, skills, the restructuring of the economy. You know, I mean, for a politician, it's really an exciting time to be in the party. And I think what we've got to try and do with the policy review process is make sure as well that all our members and supporters feel part of it, so that when we come out, you know, possibly 6 months' time, saying what are the big challenges for the country, it's Labour that have got the ideas and the energy and the dynamism to face those challenges. So for me, going through this next 6 months and then having the leadership elections is obviously a great showcase for the party. And if we handle it properly and we do it with respect and tolerance for each other and a willingness to engage in some new thinking and new ideas, then wow, you know, I mean, you should be able to get the public thinking that politics is really important, at the centre of our lives, and will determine, you know, the chances and the fairness and the equality that people are going to have for the future. And I just think now that increasingly people are open to argument that politics is relevant. The responsibility is on us to express that case in simple, direct, clear language that connects with people's lives, that talks to them about the things they care about in a way that means that they can engage as well. I think that, you know, sometimes politicians, and I think we're all guilty of this, don't do that as well as we can. Because we can do it, means you have to just try a bit about how you express it. What does it mean to somebody, you know, who's earning £6 an hour, working in a shop, trying to manage their work and family life? Where are they at? What are they concerned about for themselves and their family? And actually, if you stay in touch with people like that, then it's a very, very strong message you've got. And I think that the responsibility on all of our party members and supporters is to be out there and be in touch with people and be feeding back to me particularly, you know, what is it that people like about us, and what is it that they don't necessarily like about us. You know, are we arrogant, are we complacent, are we out of touch, are we perceived like that? Because we have to make sure, if we're going to go forward in the elections next year, in Scotland, in Wales, local government, and for the next general election, that we are on people's ground. You know, we're on their side and we're in touch with their day-to-day lives. I mean, that is my overriding concern as chair of the party. So I think that way, you know, we tackle the issues. If you think about, I've mentioned the NHS, I think that's going to be a big, big issue for us. It symbolises what we believe in as a Labour Party, that we care for people when they're vulnerable, that there's equality and equity in how people are served. And it's a kind of fundamental totemic thing about the Labour Party. So I think the NHS is hugely important. And the other issue I'd highlight is around immigration. I think that's going to be a big, big issue at the election. And I want that debate to be led by people on the progressive side of politics and not from the far right. And I think, again, you know, it's one of those things that we can't not talk about. It's out there, it's affecting people's lives. There's a very positive story to tell about the contribution that people come to this country, but there are also some real issues about jobs, about security, about people's communities that we also need to make sure that we're facing up to. So I think, you know, some big, big issues around politics at the moment. And, you know, I'm not going to thank David Cameron for anything. I think it would just go against the grain. But I have a sense that, you know, two-party politics, and I know the Lib Dems are out there, and in some places there are big challenges, but broadly, I think that fight between, you know, the battle of ideas, the battle of values, reminding people what the Tories did to our country, you know, it's all back on the table. And I don't know about you, but, you know, I came into politics wanting to fight for the things I believed in, locally as a councillor, and then as a Member of Parliament. And that sense of being able to take the fight to the Tories, to take them apart step by step, to challenge them, to scrutinise them, to really show that they're not fit to run this country, is one of the most exciting and worthwhile things that you can do. At the end of this period, over the next sort of 9 months, 12 months, I want us to come out as a party that is absolutely brimming with ideas, with energy, with new people coming up, new councillors, new activists, new younger members of Parliament, new ministers coming through. That sense that after 3 terms of a Labour government, we haven't run out of steam. The opposite is true, that we are as hungry for that 4th term as we were in 95, 96 and 97. I think it's a brilliant time to be involved. And I do think that we're going to have to, not going to have to use new technology, we're going to embrace new ways of communicating with people, new ways of being in touch. And I think, my sense was at conference that a lot of people in the party do want to change how they work. What they're looking for from people like myself is a bit of leadership around some of that. And over the next few months, we are really going to work out some practical ways about how we change the party. I think we've spent forever discussing what's wrong, and the time now is to say, right, how do we move to more networks, to more online work, to things like Labourhome. We've just put up Labour Space on the Labour website, more campaigning, being prepared to hear voices that sometimes make us a bit uncomfortable. That is the lifeblood of politics. And I'm absolutely determined that whilst I'm party chair, we will have that sense of debate and discussion underpinned by the values that we all share. So my message out there is, if you want to vote for the next Prime Minister, then you can join the Labour Party. Now, if that's not a good recruitment tool, I don't know what is. We've never done this before, but we should be out there in our communities saying, we're not just electing the next leader of the Labour Party, we are electing the country's Prime Minister. And it should be the time when we influence ideas and policies, and we make sure that Labour goes on from strength to strength.
Thank you very much.